Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. We have the gang here, except Bam, but we do have an amazing guest. We got the Buzz in the building. How's everyone doing? The Buzz, hot off of this first place at CEO. You wanna talk about your run? Talk about the tournament in general. I know you've been kind of dabbling in the Street Fighter as well, so it must have been a very interesting tournament for you, to say the least. But you still got that dub. You still got the first.
It's really funny actually, because I didn't play I have not practiced any Smash since Combo Breaker at all. The only Smash I've played is giving lessons, and I don't play my mains in lessons because like I don't want to just beat someone for like 30 minutes with Rosa Olimar and then know what's going on. So before Combo Breaker, I maybe had 15 minutes individually of Olimar and Rosa gameplay. Like that's it.
That's crazy.
It was really, really funny. I mean, I think in general, it's a bit hard to practice Smash sometimes anyway, so you also got to practice Smash a lot, but like when you're at like a top level, sometimes you just don't play and like the muscle memory like stays, I guess. So, and sometimes not playing helps because you get like refresh your mindset, right? Like you're not like, going with habits or whatever. I will say, in pools I almost lost to a Luigi player, and that was kind of a good kick in the ass. This dude's name is Jorge.
Hey.
Never heard of him, right? Wait, you know Jorge, Tony?
Oh yeah.
Oh wait! No, tell me about the Jorge lore. Hold up, I feel like you know stuff.
CFL Luigi, great guy, very fantastic up and comer. So he was definitely coming in packed and ready.
I could tell. He fought a Rosa in pools earlier, and he kind of beat that Rosa like really easily, and I was like, okay, so he knows the matchup. And yeah, I remember at game one I had to like reverse three sock him because he got the openings, and I was like, and then game two, he like reverse three socked me, and I'm like, this isn't supposed to. I'm supposed to air camp Luigi and win. Why can't I air camp him? Like he was really good at catching my jumps, and then game three I realized the reason I was having trouble is because I was letting Luma get hit by a lot of fireballs like for free, and I just started having my back facing him and like short hopping over the fireballs with star bits. That was like the adjustment, but like that was a really good set in pools to be like, okay, shit, I need to get more like into this and like be thinking more instead of trying to autopilot. And it was kind of funny because after I kind of ran through bracket for the most part until like Riddles, like I 3-0'd Tachyon. He went Wolf after I bodied his Pikachu because Pikachu Olimar is not awful but very fun for Pikachu. I describe it as a Pikachu player has to not T-Jolt camp, and no Pikachu players nowadays want to actually like fight. They want to just T-Jolt camp unless their name is Esam.
That's
And I
the classic.
thought, yeah, exactly. Bro, no, I get mad when I watch Esam, by the way. Side note, because if Esam stopped going, we talked about this, Tony, at the event. If Esam stopped going for crazy combo extensions and just went for the stuff that like is guaranteed, like he stopped trying to do like up tilt loops over and over for 6% each, he would win. But he always goes for things like near up smash, which isn't like always true, or like up tilt loops aren't true, and like all this stuff where I'm like, bro, just cash out. You get reversal more than half the time in your combos. But that's a side note, right? But I thought after that, Toast, who upset Kobe, and Toast is very scary. So Toast is the complete opposite playstyle of Kobe. I used to practice a lot with Toast before quarantine, like the beginning of it online. So you knew my matchups very well, my playstyle well, and I always remember fighting him thinking, he's just like, he'll just run at you. Like Toast will straight up just run and jump at you, but he's so good at like spacing out his moves to like counter hit you. So you're like, oh, he's gonna like forward air, let me challenge it. And he'll like drift right outside of your range and then like forward air after you press the button to like whiff punish you very well. Or like he'll look like he's gonna jump and then like just do nothing. You'll like commit to an attack and he'll dash attack you. Or he'll jump in with really well spaced like boomerang for that pressure. And then your shield's like low and he just like nares you, your shield gets poked, and it's like he's really, really good at aggressive Young Link. So I wasn't surprised he beat Kobe in the Ditto when I was watching them play. Because like Kobe kind of lets people control the pace of the game. But yeah, when I fought Toast, I had a game plan going in. That's interesting because game one was last hit. I went Olimar, last hit. And then my thought process was, I'm going to gimmick him out. Because he doesn't play the game much. He goes to tournaments, but doesn't really practice, right? He doesn't have Min-Min experience. So I went the most flowchart Min-Min possible versus him. I straight up said, I don't think he knows how to fight Min-Min. I think if I flowchart, I will win, because that matchup's bad for Young Link, and he doesn't have experience. So I won that set. It was still very close, games 2 and 3, but it was more comfortable than Olimar, because I could tell he didn't know how to, like, close out Min Min stocks in particular. Yeah, that was there, and then I fought Jake afterwards, and that was kind of just like Jake hates fighting Min Min. So I kind of just went Min Min and flowcharted again.
This is a
And
counterpick
like
god
after
over
the
here.
setting, what'd you say?
This is the counterpick god over here, bro.
No, legitimately,
What
like
does
when I'm
this
picking
player hate?
characters,
Boom.
no, legit. A lot of times I did like when I fought Kobe at Combo Breaker like a few weeks before. Someone told me that he was saying he hates fighting Olimar, and that's when I knew I was gonna go Olimar versus him at Combo Breaker. Otherwise, I was considering going Mimit or Rosa versus Kobe at Combo Breaker. It's so important to play to characters people don't like fighting or just particularly bad versus for some reason.
You got,
Yeah, like when I
and
fought
I
Jake,
feel like
like
you have 3 characters that do exactly that. So it's like
yes,
which style of I don't like playing against this character do you not like? What flavor almost, right? It's like Olimar, Rosa, or the Min Min. It's just funny observation.
yeah. We can probably talk about that more later. It's like they're all very interesting characters that prevent very interesting degenerate playstyles that the opponent has no deal with. But yeah, it's funny. As my Jake said, he said this matchup's impossible. In regards to like Mim and Steve,
Wow.
he was not. He was unhappy. I think he's being frustrated with the game in general. So Min Min also is like, when you're playing against a character that doesn't interact like Min Min and you're frustrated with the game, it's like extra annoying because it kind of like it asserts those frustrations you have with the game. It's hard to stay focused. So I kind of abuse that by just like running away and just throwing arms and be like, yeah, I'm not gonna interact. Have fun. And then afterwards I fought what I fought afterwards? Palakage. It was the same logic. He hits Mimmin, I'll go Mimmin game 1. He lost to a Mimmin in Ohio actually in a recent set. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. My Mimmin is my extra crusty character right now too because I have not been practicing much. And of my 3 characters, she's already like she requires a lot more maintenance than you'd expect. People think Mimmin's super easy to play, but because her movement's super awkward and because you can't make mistakes with her, like with Olimar, I have whistle get out stuff, right? Rosa has Luma to escape stuff. Mimmin has nothing. So she's actually the most punishing of my 3 characters to play. Meaning when I'm out of practice, it's the hardest to play that character. So Apollo Kage being my Mimmin, I was nervous honestly. I was like, I can't go Olimar versus him. He's really good versus Olimar. Like out of all the Snake players I've played, he's the one I won't go Olimar versus unless I absolutely have to. But we played friendlies, and when we were playing friendlies at CEO, it was like pretty even when we were doing Rosa Snake, maybe slightly my favorite. So I was like, I don't like Rosa Snake, because of kill power differences and weight differences. But I'm like, I'll try it. I warmed up a little bit with MVD in the matchup, and first, I don't know why MVD is amazing versus Rosa, but like, then I fought Apollo Gaga, and after switching off Mim and going Rosa, I was like, wait, Apollo doesn't know how to play the matchup properly. And then I kind of just ran him.
Yeah, you won 3
the
straight after
Yoris,
that, right? I think.
yeah. Game 4 was a 3 stock. I kind of just ran him over. I think at some point I just kind of read all of his disadvantage habits, and he was getting super flustered. So I was able to go, like, oh, you're gonna air dodge here. Oh, you're gonna spot dodge here, like all that stuff. Because Apollo Kage gets he gets antsy. I noticed.
Okay. And then Yaro was your next match, I believe.
Yeah, bro, the Euro set was that game won't start.
That's the only way
So-
Samus can win the matchup, bro. You gotta
He's
open up.
crazy.
Well, I did so. I was in the back writing down stage and counterpick data, and in the time it took me to type what stage it was, I looked up and the stock was gone. Like I didn't even see what opening he used. I assume it was back throw to down or back throw to downer.
It was dash. It was get a dash grab, down throw, something, and to read my double jump, fair me. And then when I had no double jump, he just went off stage with a super aggressive downer. I was like, oh, I'm gonna live, and then he double dips with another downer. So it was like down throw. Maybe it was like down throw, fair, downer. Yeah, I remember the thing I thought at that moment exactly was, oh, he did his homework. Because in our set at what was it called, Battle BC, I won because he was too passive. I remember the game started and we were both just trying to like space kind of safely. He was throwing his airs, trying to charge shots, wait for openings, and I'm just all right. So I'm just like just throwing shit at him. Like, all right, do something. You're not doing anything. Cool, I'll win. Do something. Okay, GG. So the fact they started the set with an immediate dash grab and just pure aggression, I was like, oh, he did his homework. He's playing a completely different style. But you know it's gonna sound weird? That overly strong opening helped me a lot in the set because it told me right away, oh, this is his adjustment. It's gonna be a completely different playstyle, so I have to play completely different in response. You know, it wasn't a question of how he's gonna make adjustments. You know what I mean? So even though I lost the game one, it kind of gave me the confidence to say I'm not gonna play passive. I'm gonna match his aggression with proactive space control and hitbox placement, like with a lot of forward smashes. In fact, game two, I remember this specifically. I was like, if I start off with a forward smash in neutral, it'll probably hit him. So I did that. I literally, first 5 seconds, forward smash hit him, just catch him run at me into a combo, and I'm like, yep, okay. I have this downloaded now. So it's very, sometimes super strong plays give away too much of your strategy, even though they seem effective in the short term.
Right.
And
I mean, at
then,
least you got a game off of it. It would suck if you like open up with that and then don't even close out the game. At least you got the game, but then you just made the counter adjustments, right? But that matchup is also very tough. Do you feel like Samus players have to find a pocket, or do you even think that's doable? Because to my understanding, that's Samus's worst matchup, or at least one of their worst matchups.
I think Samus players should have a pocket for it if the character is actually common enough to matter.
Okay. I feel
Like,
like
as
between
far as
you and Shuton, it is right. At least top level. Like if you want to win a really big tournament, your bracket having the Buzz or Shuton at like a really stacked super major, that is not a very improbable thing, right? Like I feel like as a Samus player, those are players you're eventually gonna have to run into and deal with.
it's interesting. I know he has a cloud, and I was kind of surprised he didn't pull out his cloud, to be honest, versus me. But see, it's interesting because I get what your thought process is. Like, you know, if two top 25-ish players are using one character, like you're probably gonna run into them at brackets. But is it still worth having another character for the two players out of however many that are really good, right? Because you're not gonna see both of us at the same brackets often, while Euro's also there, right? And even though what's the chance of running into Euro again for me or Shuton? Possible, not likely. And then, are you gonna benefit from that secondary in another matchup?
Right. Like is the
Is
time
the matchup
investment worth it overall? If just for those two specific players, you might as well just like roll the dice at the tournament and hope you don't get them and just play your game, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, plus I think the matchup's winnable. I don't think it's likely to be one. I think you have to constantly make reads, but it's winnable. It's not a minus like 3. It's just like because I think actually
It's just -2.
It's
It's
a
not
hard
that
-2.
it's
bad.
the one thing I'll say is if you put Olimar at the ledge, you can kill him. And Yaro was particularly bad at ledge trapping me in that set. That was the one thing where I feel like next time I play him, he's gonna get better at the ledge trapping. He's gonna kind of figure out like the nuances of getting around Pikmin toss. And he'll be able to find openings to set up bombs and charge shots to ledge shot me. Because that's the main thing he didn't do well, which kind of like let me win. Is I was like, oh, I'm off stage, throw a purple, get on stage. He got hit by it, or he didn't know how to like time a bomb between the purple setup. Cool.
Okay.
I do feel bad for him though because I know he's that matchup. He tweeted about it before. He's like,
You can't charge shot, bro. Like that's
yeah.
Samus's like 80% of Samus's gameplay is centric around charge shot. So when you don't have
That is
charge
true.
shot, when that's out of the question, it's like you're Samus is like somewhat mediocre in every other department. I mean, obviously there are some highs like the ledge trapping and stuff like that, but charge shot is like the backbone of the character. So it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. But that's his luck. Or he somehow beat what's his name? He beat two Steves in bracket, right? Riku and someone
I
else.
believe so, yeah.
And that matchup, when I watched that matchup, I'm just like, this looks as bad as Olimar.
The matchup is awful. Yeah, it's not a good match for Samus. But he made it work. I think that's the thing about Samus that makes the character crazy is that like even in these bad matchups, you can kill them at 90 with up tilt at the ledge. And it's very like it's not very likely to hit, but it's definitely like in the cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's an option, and that's all you need in Ultimate is like an option that can sometimes end the stock below 100.
Especially with like the current ledge trapping meta, I think having a coverage ledge trap that kind of like works independently from the character, like Samus, like Snake, I think that's way more powerful than like Roy jab, Crom jab, Fox Nair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're not risking getting reversaled, and too many good characters have
Exactly.
very strong reversals.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that transitions into I'm fighting Riddles, right? And I'm like, hey, you're Kazuya, you're at the ledge. I'm just backing off. I don't interact with this anymore.
The last time you played him was at Kagaribi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that was where I reverse 3-0'd him.
Reverse
Funny
3-0
enough,
with
I
the Rosa, right?
basically reverse 3-0'd him again.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. That was for during Grands, right? Well, that was the because he 3
Yeah,
0'd
'cause
you first set. No.
yeah, 3-0'd, and then he was up game 1-0 and reset, and then I won 3
Right.
in a row.
Yeah, and then you won. Okay, so it wasn't reverse 2-0 or reverse 3-0, but yeah, he was up a game.
It
He had a
basically
lot
was,
of he
yeah.
had a lot of momentum, right? He was getting the electrics, and yeah, I guess I mean you have a lot of experience against these kind of touch of death characters. I mean, you kind of there's a lot of
I
characters that
played
do
Brawl,
that,
yeah.
right? So yeah, you've played Brawl, you've played Smash 4, like you've been touched to death many times. So what's your mentality when going up against a volatile character like Kazuya, where you have just like this one move that you're trying to avoid? If you get hit once by it, you're taking bare minimum 80 or something like that, right?
My thought process is, how can I avoid playing the game? Like, I kind of go into a character like Kazuya, right? Or let's say Smash 4 Bayo, or Brawl Ices, all these touch of death characters. Steve this close enough to it. And I'm like, all right. So there's no interactions I can take that are good for me, really. So where are situations I can throw an attack out, but it's not an interactive experience, right? There's no, hey, you can hit me. It's, hey, I can throw this attack out and either hits you or nothing happens, and then I reset until I have this chance to do the same thing again. Because the thought process is, at least with a character like Rose in particular, is that, and this I learned from the Japanese Roses, just fighting, like watching them play, fighting one friendlies, and realizing they play with like almost entirely detether Luma, and I was like, damn, I can't really hit Rosa behind detether Luma if the Rosa just like is moving well with it. So that kind of taught me like a lot of this is how to play super degenerate, non-interactive gameplay, which is very helpful for a character like Kazuya, right? That's why I'm like, I'm gonna shoot Luma, I'm gonna jump Starbits. If Luma hits him with Starbits, cool, I got some damage. If nothing happens, cool, nothing happens. If Luma gets hit, I can air camp. I'm Rose. I think she has the longest lasting jumps in the game, funny enough. Like if she does full hop, it's the longest lasting full hop in the game. I think she has the top 5 or top 10 double jump height. And then she has Peach air acceleration and like moderate airspeed, along with a really long directional air dodge to like get to platforms and stuff. So she has all the tools needed to just basically circle camp. And that's kind of a lot of her matchups in general, right? Is you circle camp, and if the opponent's character can't deal with it, she can like theoretically just never lose a lot of those matchups. It's just a matter of not messing up that game plan at all. But yes, that's why I'm only. That's why like I'm literally saying I'm never interacting with you, and if I interact with you, it's I have a backup plan, right? Like if I interact with you, Luma will save me if I get hit, so I'm only gonna take 20 damage or 40 damage instead of dying.
So would
There
you?
was like,
Oh, okay, yeah, go
oh
on.
sorry, go on. No, go on.
So would you say that your Rosa leveled up a lot during the Japan trip? Because I feel like you as a player, especially like after Kaguribi, it felt like you were kind of struggling to get into these top eights, right? You kind of had like a little low fall of a season or so, right? Right. And then coming
Mhm.
into Kaguribi, it just felt like after Kaguribi, your confidence just went high, like really high up. And then I feel like the Rosa started coming out a lot more, and the Rosa started having a lot of success, especially in these top 8 runs. Do you feel like Japan was a really big part of that, just like understanding Rosa, or you felt like you leveled up with your Rosa, or just in general out there?
Yeah, I think because a big part of it is Japan actually has multiple good roses. Like in America, the only like particularly good rosa. There's some other okay roses, but then like I'll watch them and I'm like, I can't learn from this. But then I watch like Japanese roses and they just play so differently too. And then the Japanese player, and then like it's at first I was watching Japanese roses and I was like, they play differently. I'm not sure I can apply this, right? And then I went to Japan and I fought people who have rosa counterplay, and I understood why the Japanese roses play so differently because they know how to shit on standard, like very like tethered my style of Rosa. Because the Japanese Roses have tried it and lost with it. So being able to not just see it but experience it and experience how they developed gave me a lot of like answers as to like, oh, so this is why I should detether here. This is why they go for this setup. And it was very eye opening to experience for sure. Um And plus, there's just so many good players in Japan to play with, right? So you have all these good like players that know the matchup and also just genuinely very good. And there's a lot of footage of Rosa's versus these players because you have the main ones are Yuzu and then Yama D. And I think I'm forgetting a third Rosa.
Damn, man.
But
They
I
got
think
the
those are two
assembly
main
line,
ones.
bro.
Bro, it's actually insane.
That's insane.
But
Crazy.
yeah, I remember specifically the moment I fought Yamadi in friendlies. I didn't know who this guy was, by the way, so this guy Yamadi is the best solo Rosa in Japan because Yuzu plays Rosa Minmin. Or have you heard that one before? And I remember playing this Rosa, and I thought it was a random Rosa I follow on Twitter because he has cool tech. Not realizing this Rosa I follow on Twitter is actually Yamadi because he goes by something else on Twitter. And he's doing all my tech, like he's doing like all the attack cancels, all the setups, everything, but the tether. And I'm like, I beat him 2 on the friendly set, but I'm like, wait. Bro, he's doing all my shit, but with the tether play, this is so smart and it's so difficult. It's a mid-level Rosa giving me trouble. What the hell is going on? This is awesome. Like, that was so eye-opening, honestly.
A great example of just top level players like not being too engulfed in their ego to learn from someone else they just too old kind of deal, right? Like just because I feel like even just from that set, you learned a lot because you saw him apply a lot of the tech you use, but in a different way, being detethered, right? So that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yep. And this was right after I got 33rd at Delta, the second Japanese tournament. So, like, I was down the dumps about my results. I was like, screw it. I'm going to just try anything and everything. I'm like, you know what I'm doing is working. I'm going to copy this dude and see if that works. Because I don't fucking know what to do anymore.
It honestly is I do want to talk about Rosa and your thoughts about Rosa and kind of your character lineup in general, but let's first talk a little bit more on Rosa specifically. How strong do you feel Rosa is, and what was the main reason that you picked up Rosa in the first place? Do you feel like picking up Rosa again onto your roster was more of like a desperation thing where it's like, fuck it, I'm trying to like play Min Min, it's not working out, like maybe just go more towards a comfort pick? And then on top of that, how strong do you think Rosa is? Like after you answer that question, I know I asked you one time, but yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, a good part of picking Rosa and getting better with her was quarantine. So one, I was playing her a little bit before all the buffs in quarantine because I had a lot of skill with her from Sm 4, and I could gimmick people out with her. Like I remember beating Samsora, I think the first summit with Rosa as a pure gimmick pick, right?
Mhm.
And there was a few instances of that. I think I beat Light a few times quarantine with her because he didn't know the matchup. But I remember quarantine rolled around, and I was initially gonna start picking up R.O.B as a character because I was like, Rob's really broken and all that stuff. But then my thought process was, with all the online tournaments and stuff happening, learning R.O.B online was not going to be helpful for whenever quarantine ended. Because he's carried online, right? Can we all agree with this one?
It's a lot better
Everyone
online.
has
Online is insane character online.
Yes. Already
So
an
my thought
insane
process,
character offline too.
True.
exactly, just broken ever, right? But my thought process was for quarantine, I want to play a character or characters that are about as good or even worse online. Because if I do that, I'm gonna be able to transition to offline better whenever quarantine's over. And also with online, with quarantine comes content time, right? Like more time to stream because there's no tournaments to go to, so you gotta be content creator. And people like seeing niche bad characters.
True.
So I'm like, Rosa sucks online. Rosa sucks in general. She's a niche bad character. People like watching her as a result. And she has cool tech, and the devs keep insisting on buffing her. Every single patch they buffed her. Like, literally, every single major patch. You got one buff. Even the last patch, they buffed Luma's survivability.
Big deal.
So I was confident throughout quarantine that she was going to get better over time. And so all those reasons was kind of like, I will give Rosa a real shot. I'll add her to the lineup. She covers all these bases, even though, especially at that moment, I was like, yeah, she's really bad.
And do you
And
still
then
think she's bad?
I think Fighters Pass 2 makes her bad, yes.
Oh, okay. Just like the characters that, like the power creep of Fighter Pass 2.
Yes, because I think if I look at that, like, I don't think she does well versus I'm trying to think of the characters. She loses the Kazuya slightly. Um, she loses the Sora probably. She definitely loses to Aegis. That's like unwinnable. She loses to Mimin really bad. She loses to Steve, pretty bad as well. And what's the last Fighters Pass you got?
Sephiroth.
Sephiroth.
Oh, that matchup's not awful, but it's another losing matchup, right? And they're all common characters. Because she
Dang, the
kind
entire
of
Fighter Pass 2. Holy shit.
That's rough.
Holy
It's
fuck.
actually so bad. Like, luckily, besides Aegis, they're all winnable matchups.
Mm.
Because she has such a diverse kit, right? Like there's always something to learn with her. There's always tech to apply, combos to learn. Like her kit is constantly evolving, which makes her a really surprisingly good tournament character, like as an investment, because you're never gonna get to a point where it's like, oh, this has been figured out. There's nothing left to do, right? I can always go into an event with a new strategy or a new trick or something that's gonna catch people off guard. Hell, there's like a couple things I didn't even use at CEO that I'm like, I forgot to apply these things I learned that I can still use for another tournament when people aren't ready for it. They're like, what the hell, Dabuz? Why is this a thing? So that's very useful. And then there's a lot of matchups where she just kind of wins because she's so good at non-interactive gameplay when she wants to be. And she's a good character with Luma, right? When she has Luma around, she's a top tier. Straight up. It's just she's very bad without Luma. But if you can play in a way where you're only fighting with Luma, where a lot of characters can't chase her floatiness, she's suddenly a really good character. So she handles a good amount of the cast, including a lot of relevant characters, very well. Like if there was no Fire Pass 2, I wouldn't hesitate to call her a good character. I'd be like, yeah, she the only characters that are really bad for her out of like non-Fighter Pass 2 is like Belmont's is awful, but who plays Belmont's besides T3 Dom?
Right. Very rare.
Um,
Very rare.
Yeah,
Cloud,
right.
Cloud is rough, right?
Yosefu.
Cloud is
Yosefu, true.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. There's two people I did not want to run into in bracket. Actually, three. I didn't want to run into Riddles first of all. I didn't want to run into Yosefu. I did not want to run into Beast Mode Paul. Hero Rose is another very bad matchup.
Oh yeah, Beast Mode Paul. Damn.
Yeah,
All right.
dude. If I ran the Beast Mode Paul, I probably would have got farmed. I'm not gonna lie. But bless.
All right, so
But,
before I transition into some other questions from Ramses and Tony, I'm just going to do a quick show. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're also on Spotify as well, so you can check that out. Hit the download button and share the podcast with all your friends that do enjoy all the nerdy things about Smash, as we do here on this podcast. But I know Ramses and Tony had some questions as well. We can start with Ramses for the Buzz. So, you got any questions for Sir the Buzz here?
Yeah. So, the Buzz and I are kindred spirits in a couple of ways, and one of the ways is that we are huge tournament preparers. I always like to do a lot of like VOD review of my opponents, get an idea of their habits, their game plans, and I was really curious about like your preparation progress. So I know the Buzz for CEO, you prepared in a pretty unique way. so we can ignore CEO for the time being, but for like an average like major that you prepare for, it sounds like you focus a lot on like knowledge checks, on finding ways to turn a game non-interactive. Like tell me a little bit about your process of preparing. What do you focus on? What makes you comfortable, and what makes you feel like you're ready to get into a tournament?
Alongside of a coach too, because you do have a coach as well with Last, right?
Yep. So a
Okay.
lot of times with me and Les, we discuss play style. So I think a big part of preparation for brackets is understanding. So obviously one is known characters, right? But you have to know the players more than the characters, I feel like, because characters in Ultimate are pretty well balanced. Like most characters that are good anyway have enough options that you can't just say I'm gonna play this way and there's no answers for it. That's just not how it works. With that said, players are not well balanced. Everyone has things they're strong at and weak at. So when I go into brackets, I a lot of times I'm prepping for players. I try to look at them and think, all right, what are their strengths as a player? What is their playstyle? And what's kind of the counter playstyle to their strengths? Or what's the things they're not going to know about? Or what are the areas they're confident in? And I can exploit that confidence by like being willing to play their game, but knowing how they play it. And yeah, so, a good example is maybe someone like Esam, right? I see Esam in my bracket, and I'm like, all right, Esam's really good at aggressive play. He's really confident in his ability to push advantage state. How can I bait that advantage state push out of him and reversal him in those situations, right? But then let's say I fight, I think his name's H4DS, like the Pikachu from West Coast, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He, inversely, is the most defensive Pikachu I've ever freaking seen, right? He's not confident in his advantage state, but he's confident in his edge guarding. In neutral, he's got to play T-Jolts until he has an opening. So in verse, I might look at him and say, all right, how am I going to play around what he prefers, which is very campy T-Jolt play? How am I going to punish that? And how am I going to make him think he has very safe openings and then punish those openings? Like, make him, be like, oh, this looks like a safe opening. Actually, no, I'm going to punish this now. And You really just have to look at the general strategies of players, and you have to look when people what they do when they get nervous is a big one, because everyone gets nervous at some point when they get when they're losing, or maybe someone gets nervous and up and like they're about to win, but they can't like close out of stock, or maybe there's specific situations. You want to find out those moments they get nervous and what they do when they get nervous in particular, because I think you can snowball matches really hard off one or two interactions when you understand like, oh, this player always picks a ledge option at this timing when they're about to lose a stock, or hey, if someone gets like 150%, they're not dead, this player consistently fishes for a grab to kill, so I'm gonna abuse that. And that is a lot of my prep, is these player specific things and not too much focus on the matchup themselves. And as a result, a lot of my prep is also figuring out what character to play versus different players. I try to have two characters I can play versus any player at a given time, because I'm never gonna need like all three characters versus one player. But I want to be able to confidently play, Rosa Olimar or Olimar Mimon or some combination versus anyone, in case my initial game plan doesn't work out. So it also goes
So
into knowing matchups. Like knowing if someone knows the matchup is a big deal as well.
I get you. So say you're put in a situation where you didn't prepare for the opponent. Is that like, how do you deal with that? Is that something that makes you nervous or uncomfortable, or is there some sort of like backup plan that you rely on? Like, how do you manage not being in that comfort zone?
I don't, as much as that sounds like I prep for players a lot, I don't rely on player prep, right? Like if I just practice the game and improve, like I can be confident in my game plan. Like plus I think for the most part, I know most players and how they play, know most matchups. Like unless they're running something like completely random, I'm gonna be like, okay, I didn't prep for this player because I'm gonna lose this bracket early, but I have a general idea of the style and the matchup, and then I can just play confidently in my game plan. It helps a lot for me that I'm very confident in my play with Rosa and Olimar in just about any matchup. So I can just go in with a baseline, this is my game plan, and I'm going to play safe as well until I get enough information in the matches to go for more confident, potentially risky like options. But really a lot of it just comes down to practicing the game regularly and constantly improving. Because you can never be ready for anything. And I never want to like here's the thing. You don't want to over prep for players either, because you don't want to assume you know everything about them and then get caught off guard. You want to kind of like leave a bit of like mental capacity for they're gonna do things I'm not ready for, and that is fine.
Yeah,
So,
Oh, go ahead, Ramses.
well, I had a final question to top it off. So, in these situations where you're not prepared and you're going into a set, um, how much would you say you rely on basically playing by intuition and kind of relying on that skill that you build up, and how much like do you devote extra effort to like deliberately trying to figure them out? In other words, spending a little bit more mental energy, like, well, checking in on your gameplay basically. Is there a choice you make there, or is it generally like, do you kind of just go into every match with the same dynamic, mostly regarding like mental energy? Like, do you intentionally invest more when you're not prepared, or do you maybe intentionally invest more when you are prepared to, like, really capitalize on these elements of your play? Is there like any decision making there? Because I understand, like, maybe you just do whatever feels right in the moment.
Yeah. Um. I think a lot of it comes down. There's definitely more mental energy like being spent when I'm not prepared for someone to like study them during the game, right? Like if I fight someone I'm not ready for that at all. Also, can you guys hear the sirens outside? Because they're very loud. I'm sorry.
It's not that bad on this end. Don't worry about
It's
it.
like it's like background noise. We can still
Yeah,
enjoy it.
don't worry
Alright,
about it.
You're good.
But yeah, so I definitely spend more mental energy in a bracket when I'm not ready for a player, just like trying to get adjusted to them. And the big thing is when I'm not ready for a player, I use that mental energy to figure out how to slow the game down a lot so I can piece together what they're doing, like what they're looking for, how they're trying to play
Mhm.
strategy, right? And a lot of times, once I kind of slow the game down and piece them together, then I'll increase the pace of the game to my comfort. Whereas if I go into a set I'm ready for, I can play at a very fast pace because I'm confident knowing what I do and don't want to go for. So yes, it is more energy mid bracket, and it also I kind of let people control the tempo of the game a little bit more by doing that unintentionally, because if I'm playing slower, that's more room for my opponent to play fast. But I'm very confident in my ability to like play super safe and slow and not get blown up for it. That I think it's a fine approach instead of like it's better to have a game that goes on 5 minutes than a game that goes on 2 minutes if I'm not sure like how it's gonna play out, because that's
Yeah.
more time to figure something going on.
So, final question, actual final question. Do when you're figuring it out on the fly, are you looking for the same information as what you would look for when preparing, or is it like simplified to work in the moment, or is it like a different type of information that you feel is more relevant when you have a little like a low amount of time to figure it out? Do you change what you're looking for?
Um, hmm. Hmm. I would say yes, because if I'm trying to prep for someone, I'm thinking about more specific interactions. But in a set, I'm thinking about the general vibe and the general strategies of the set, right? I don't have time to figure out the nuance of like, how do I punish this back air spacing? I have to figure out, are they going for back air in the first place? If so,
Mhm.
where and why?
That makes sense. All right, yeah, thank you.
All right, Tony, the floor is yours.
So you are a multi-game all-star. You have been a top player in multiple titles, multiple game genres. So, with you being the moniker of both King of New York and Galaxy Brain of New York, I assume that you are going to have a strategy or general approach to competitive gaming. How would you relate that to your character choices in particular? So, you mentioned that Rosalina is not as strong as a character as, say, Steve. So, why would you say that you play Rosalina over Steve, and what are the pros and cons of that?
Um, a lot of being able to be good at a game and a character is just genuinely enjoying the character and being able to find something that fits your natural skill set. Like me playing Fox, for example, would not work out, right? It's just not my natural skill set. Or me playing Steve doesn't work out because I get bored out of my mind playing the character. Because it has to be
Could
kind
you
of that
explain your
spark of like,
natural skill set real quick, just in case like maybe there's some viewers that haven't seen like too much of your gameplay or whatnot, or maybe they're newer to Smash. Explain to the viewers your what you feel like your natural skill set is, just
um,
towards games in general, right? Because now we're just talking about like general games, but yeah.
yeah, I think I'm really good at like figuring out, um, I'm really good at frustrating people, right? That's just one thing. I'm really good at kind of like figuring out what someone is thinking, like emotionally. Like, are they, are they getting really annoyed and aggressive? Are they getting more frustrated and like antsy? Are they just like, I'm gonna play super campy and lame with for the opening? Like, I'm really good at understanding someone's like emotional response in a game, and I am really good at just kind of visualizing like space control. Like, where can I hit my opponent? Where can they hit me? Where are the spots that are good for me and bad for me as a result? And kind of about using both the things together. I'm really good at breaking down like game plans and developing like, here are situations that are strong for me that I can play towards, and situations my opponent wants to play towards. And with that knowledge, how do I find a game plan that like is gonna like do this, right? Like how do I find game plans that really optimize what I want and minimize what they want? Because I think I'm really bad at very like reactive game plans. I'm really bad at scramble situations. I'm just really bad at like heat of the moment places.
Okay.
So with that said, that's why I play characters that use range a bit more and kind of use the timer a bit more, because I'm gonna over time just develop like a strategy that's gonna feel almost impossible to overcome.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that was a really good explanation. So, any other questions, Tony, to bounce off of that?
So, for newer players who are essentially deciding what character they'd like to use, how would you recommend to those players to decide what character they should be playing?
Um, I always tell people you want to find a character that you enjoy playing the game with, even when you lose. You have to enjoy the game even when you lose, and you have to enjoy like getting better and like finding new things with a character. If you play a character and you're losing and getting frustrated and just like, this character can't do it. Stop playing the character. Or if you're like playing the character and you don't really feel motivated to like sit down and like learn new combos or setups or even just like theory craft a matchup. Granted, not everyone like thinks that way, but I think that's a strong indication that character isn't really your vibe. And like this doesn't necessarily mean play the character that vibes with you the most, because like let's say that character fused Ganondorf, but you also like playing Roy. Not as much. I'm gonna tell you play Roy because that's a better character, of course. But if the difference is like maybe you can play Hero or you can play Roy, but you vibe more with Hero, I'm gonna say play Hero then, even if Roy's a better character.
And that's I think coming from you, it stands out a little bit more, right? Because if you're asking like a solo Steve main that question, you're like, well, you play solo Steve, so like, you know what I mean. But the Buzz is a top player that is showing, Rosa. I think we can all agree is high tier at best. I don't think any of us is gonna put Rosa in top tier, even if our top tier is gracious. Like my top tier is like top 20. I still don't have Rosa there. You know what I mean? Like Rosa
Yeah, yeah.
is with the cup half full. Rosa is high tier. That's very optimistic, right? And then most.
Optimistic.
Right, right. And that's like, with the tech and stuff. And I mean, it's proven. We see the Buzz and other Rosa players like bring this character into top eights and stuff like that. But definitely not a character that's just like, oh, you want some W's? Go grab Rosalina. Just do this really corny setup that's like super easy bake and stuff like that. So coming from the Buzz as advice, I think it hits a little closer to home. You have any
Yeah.
other questions, Tony?
The final form of that same question is, so going forward in Ultimate, what do you think the best way to choose a roster is? To just aim for the best character? Or do you think that counterpicking is going to become more relevant as the game progresses?
Um, I tell people at a like high end top level, right? Like let's say someone is PR level. I think you want two characters in Ultimate. I think one, even if it's like a top tier character like Aegis, I think one character is actually bad. Because you're gonna let people know the matchup versus Aegis. Like you actually bear think about it. You want at least one character that is really good. Doesn't have to be top tier, right? I think Olimar is my really good character. Like he's solidly high tier, has a great matchup spread, all that stuff. And then you want one character that is a bit more uncommon, which for me is Rosa, right? Because it doesn't have to be the best, but you want a character that you can like use as insurance. Like, okay, someone might not fight Olimar or Aegis very well, because Olimar has been around forever. There was a lot of top Olimars, and then Aegis is Aegis. But a character like Rosa, no one like you're gonna have the matchup knowledge a lot of times, so you can always take advantage of that. Even if someone knows the matchup, they're never gonna. It's hard to know it extremely well. So, two characters, one that's really good, reliable, and then one that's a bit more niche. And both characters have to be characters you vibe with. I think three characters is something people make a mistake doing. I do it. I think it's a mistake because I normally only have two characters like in practice at the moment anyway. Like a lot of times, I will be a Rosa Olimar main for a few months, and then I'll be a Rosa Min Min main for a few months, and then back to Rosa Olimar, and then I think Rosa sucks, and I'm an Olimar Min Min main. And it's really hard unless you have like infinite time to have three characters in your lineup, and I think trying to maintain three only makes all of them worse.
Any other questions, Tony?
I think that'll go ahead and close me out there.
Got it. I just want to ramble for like maybe another 15 minutes. We got some time still. So the Buzz, in your opinion, who do you think is your best character of the three? And I know Min Min's not going to be on there. So between Olimar and Rosa, who do you think is old reliable at this point? Because I think you've had a roller coaster, right? Olimar, if you guys don't know, Olimar was probably considered one of the best, if not like at worst top three character at the release of Ultimate. Very strong. There was a ton of fantastic Olimar players in the beginning. The Buzz, Shuton, Myron, right, did really well in the beginning as well. All of these players are still really good with Olimar, but the character has been, hit down a lot. Probably one of the hardest nerfed characters in the entire game, like along with Pichu and some other characters. So yeah, I guess throughout your whole entire career, would you consider like which one do you consider your backbone character?
Honestly, I think they're both equally my like best characters. Like when people call me a Rosa main, I'm like I'm definitely a duo main of like Rosa Olimar with a Mim in secondary. Because like people always think, oh, I would mostly Rosa in bracket. A lot of brackets, I'm going equal amounts of Rosa Olimar, or maybe more Olimar sometimes. Like I mean, for example, at Combo Breaker, I went more Olimar than Rosa when I won that event, actually. Here at CEO, I went an equal amount of all Olimar, Rosa, and Min Min, actually. In Japan, I think I had more success. I was more comfortable with Olimar in a lot of matchups in Japan than Rosa. I mean, look, all the snakes I fought with mostly Olimar, right? Abadanga lost to the Rosa, switched to Olimar. Um, and I think while I have more knowledge of Rosa as a character, I think in terms of skill, they're actually very, very even. And a lot of times it just ends up being what kind of playstyle I'm trying to go for in the matchup. Because Rosa, methodical, slower, space based character, lots of setups, kind of tries to disengage a lot and win off lots of safe, non like interactive situations. But Olimar is the opposite. Olimar is a character that's actually really strong in interactive matchups because he hits so hard with such good frame data that like he can just run over people, like just throw purple, get in their face, press buttons, and just overwhelm them, right? So it really depends on the pace of the matchup. And that's why I would just consider both pretty equal for me as mains and like skill. And yeah, my Min Min's bad. We already know that. My Min Min's a flowchart.
I
That's fine.
I think you just need to put more time into your minion. Like you said, Min Min is a character that is of all your characters, it is by far the strongest character. But Min Min is very similar to Aegis, and we've heard Leo and other Aegis players talk about how frustrating Aegis is. Even Cosmos has spoke on this. Is
Mm-hmm.
how frustrating it is to play that as in a tournament, right? Like your
Yep.
character's
Yep.
so broken on paper, on stage, neutral, right? And then there's just this one like ultra glaring weakness, which is something that like Steve doesn't have a weakness as bad as Aegis or Min Min, right? Like Steve is slow and doesn't have like great base stats and stuff. And there's certain scenarios against certain matchups where he's pretty fucked, like especially against like Cloud and stuff like that, or just like long,
Mm-hmm.
a quick character with a very fast and safe disjoint. Not all our characters have that. Cloud's one of them. But so there are scenarios where Steve is weak in that aspect, but anyone can hit Min Min or Aegis out of their double jump. Literally anyone. Like even characters
Yep.
that don't even have great offstage, like Fox, for example, is not known for his offstage prowess, but can gimp, these characters like Min Min or Aegis. So do you feel like you're gonna put more time into the Min Min so you feel more comfortable in those scenarios? Because like I feel like the only way you can get your Min Min up to par is if you just dump so much time into the Min Min that you become really comfortable with Min Min in these like scramble or offstage scenarios, and you don't panic and like lose these stocks, because that's what it feels like makes the character so hard.
I've tried putting a lot of time into Min Min, like actively like sitting down, practicing her a lot and nothing else. And it doesn't work out. And I think even when I watch other Min Min players, like, who are really good, like Protobana, I'll see him just lose to people randomly that he should beat just because he gets hit once and dies. So, granted, Dora Gimi is a Min Min player in Japan that beat me and then just got Seka Giant National, beating Proto and Kame and other great players. So he's shown the character can be pushed even further. But I actually am probably putting less and less time in the Min Min over time because I think when you have a character like that who is really broken on paper until they get hit, suddenly every interaction that should be really good isn't actually that favorable for you. Like, yeah, I zone you out all day, and I get jumped on once and I die, potentially. Not always, but just that alone means I have to always consider every interaction I take as like, I could lose this stock. And in brackets, especially, you're like, you have a deficit, that could just be game ending. And also, she has trouble killing unless you get edge guards with her. Unless you can run off stage and hit people with those like really deep edge guards, she actually does have a bit of trouble getting kills. And even her damage output, once again, unless she gets edge guards, her damage output isn't particularly high in this game. So it's a really uncomfortable bracket character when people know how to exploit her. And that's why I don't think she, for me at least, is a good investment. Considering I've tried to before, I've actually had situations where, like, I remember when quarantine was ending, I did not play Olimar for months, by the way, before Low Tide City. I straight up did not practice the character at all. I was practicing mostly Min Min Rosa, right? And then I had to pull out Olimar a lot at that bracket to get through. So there's kind of just an intuition that I don't have with the character that I've tried to develop. But and I think it comes down to the fact that I'm really good at characters that like control mid range pretty well and can convert that into a strong closer range. Min Min, controls mid range and long range very well, and wants to disengage close range, but isn't good at that. So
Okay.
I think the fact that I'm not good in scramble situations, and you have to be good in scramble situations with her to like not get destroyed, is a big reason why my attempts to get better with her really haven't shown much overall. I also think because she's so hard to control. Like I play Rosa, right? Rosa is very technical, but Rosa is like low key easy to control because her movement is very fluid. You have a lot of freedom of Luma stuff. Min Min is extremely technical because her movement's so awkward and rigid already. And you have to basically be a solo Min Min player to make that movement smooth, right? Like you watch like the Rig and Mimins, all the Rig and Mimins are like solo Mimins except for Proto. And like everyone else that tries playing Mimins as a secondary, the Mimins always look ugly, mine included, because the movement is so difficult to get so crisp while managing attacking with both arms. Because like her two like buttons for two different arms as attacks is such a weird thing to work with, and you have to constantly when you're playing, you have to be like constantly managing to just a lot of buttons at once, pretty much. So I think that she is an extremely difficult character, and that is not stated enough. And like that's why it hasn't worked out for me the way I want to.
She's so popular too, right? So it's like every time you're fighting up against someone, they know the Min Min matchup. You know what I mean? They know
Yep,
how
yep.
to get that one opening. Your opponent always feels like they're gonna have an out, and I feel like for your playstyle too, you having a couple little extra layers of cushion on your disadvantage is something that you prefer, right? Just for your own risk reward assessment, where it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a very favorable position. I might be able to get hit here, but I will not die unless my opponent like just Ganon down airs me for some crazy fucking combo video read or some
Yep.
shit. I should be good, right? So,
I'm gonna use that to my advantage. A lot of times I'll take hits intentionally to like punish people even.
mhm.
So it's like yeah, and a lot of times it's like I know if this hits me, this isn't a big deal. So yeah, definitely does not. That just doesn't work with that character for sure. I mean, I actually watched the Tweak Talks earlier today where you were talking about Mimmin, and you're like, I think this is how the Buzz thinks, and I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Sometimes I take a stab. Real quick story before we end off this podcast. So during the Smash 4 days, I coached Void. So that's the first player I coached from unranked to top 10 in the world. One of his biggest issues was getting a win. The two players that he had like just could not close it out against were the Buzz and
Mhm.
Zero. He eventually got one on the Buzz and won the tournament. I remember him texting me. He was like, "Dude, I finally beat the Buzz," and I was like, "Holy
Yeah,
shit, you're gonna win the tournament!" And he
bro,
he
he
won
played
that
that
tournament.
set so well.
Yes, and the big reason why Void had a lot of struggles against Zero and the Buzz, I think those two players, especially in Smash 4, were just so powerful at controlling the pace. And it's crazy. I think you were actually the best player at it, specifically against. I think the Buzz was the best player in the world in Smash 4 when it came to soaking someone's offense. So just really, Void was Void in Smash 4 was all about like, oh, he was the guy that came out of nowhere. He hits you once, do these perfect pivot
Mhm.
fucking combos, zero to death you, go for these crazy edge guards, right? And you were a player that could soak all that offense and like control his pacing and slow the pacing down to being like, all right, this isn't gonna be a fucking combo video game. Like this is going to be fundamentals versus fundamentals. Like we're gonna tick and tack each other. If you do get a hit, it's only gonna be like maybe a couple hit combo, and then we're gonna reset back to neutral. Then we play neutral, right? And obviously you're tri-state, so you have a ton of experience when it comes to those like
Yep.
neutral interactions and stuff like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So
Champion character.
it was very, very hard. And I code for it. So like always theory crafting with him. I always told him to just, I was like, dude, just go Cloud, man. Everyone else is doing it versus the Buzz. Just pick fucking Cloud and fuck that Luma up with back air and like call it a day. And he was so stubborn. He's like, no, I want to get it with Sheik. I want to get it with Sheik. And you are so good against Sheik. But
Yep. I remember that set particularly because I remember the reason I had trouble with that him in that specific set was he started using singlet needles. He would specifically let me do something with Luma, and then he would throw a needle at me during the leg of whatever attack, where Luma couldn't like block all the needles and pop me up. And I remember specifically, I was like, I couldn't play mid range and super safe defensive versus him because he was playing a much more patient opportunistic game and abusing the fact that I was so good at Silk offense and expecting it to get needles to pop me up. I remember that specifically from that set because I was watching and I was like, holy crap. That was so good. That was so like unexpected.
yeah, yeah. So I guess just bringing up that story, I kind of wanted to transition into your take, or why do you feel like you're so strong at controlling the pace? Because even throughout all the other questions, a big word I heard you say a lot is pace, controlling the pace. And I guess what is your take on pace control? Is that why you feel like you kind of lean towards some of the other characters that you lean towards? Do you feel like they can control the pace, control the mid range? Do you think the mid range and pacing in general are connected? I know Ramses is really, really big on believing that Ultimate is a very mid range game. Like your character strength at mid range is so important in Ultimate. And I also feel like mid range kind of ties into pacing. So I guess what's your view on pacing, and do you feel like your characters kind of gravitate towards pace control?
Hmm. Well, my characters definitely do. My characters, when my characters are on screen, we're playing my game. That's a fact.
Right. And you want to
Whatever it is.
control
If
the
it's all
pace,
of our
right?
yeah, all of our throwing purples. Guess what? It's gonna be a fast game. I'm gonna run at you and press buttons, or I can throw purples and just kind of like sit behind them and make you deal with the pigment pressure coming at you and the timer, like ticking away as I get more purples and more whites. You know, Luma's on the screen, and I'm just getting free residual damage as long as it's not dead. And when it's dead, you have to kill Rosa, or Luma's come back to do the same thing. Mimic is just the entire stage is a hitbox for her, right? Um, and I think in those situations, I'm I'm forcing people to do certain things. And like I know that. I know I am objectively making people have to do certain things in response to my options proactively. And I know how they have to respond to it. Like I know, if I'm playing Hero, for example, he has to respond to Mimin throwing out arms by blocking them and doing jump as shield side B. And I know as a result, he's gonna have to shield a lot at that longer range, or he's gonna have to jump in past the arms with aggressive fairs. Or another example matchup, I know if I'm fighting like Game & Watch, that he's gonna have to use a lot of buckets to deal with Pikmin Toss, and he's gonna have to run up and dash attack. And like I know the answers people are gonna have to use versus my options. And as a result, I'm really good at saying, therefore, in this position, you're likely to use this, or this is the only good option, or you have these 2 or 3 options, and I'm gonna be able to play around those consistently because I know what exactly people should be looking for. And if they don't go like what they should be looking for, right, they're using less optimal options, might catch me off guard, might be weird. But I'm playing these characters that force you to play certain ways for a reason. Like I don't care if Game Watch, hits me with, I don't know, he jumps in me and hits me with like a back air or neutral, right? Like I don't really care that much because it's not gonna lead to much damage. So I don't have to play around that as much as my Pigment Toss damage is already getting so much free residual damage. I'm winning that trade anyway. And I think that's kind of like my trick to pace control is understanding the nuance of what options are even worth going for, and therefore what I'm playing towards and not playing around. And so, in fact, I'm really good at reading how people like are when they play, like their emotional state as they play. And it creates a lot of situations where I kind of feel like I'm in my opponent's head very quickly.
Yeah, it sounds
I
like a
mean, the
lot
Euro
of
set, remember I told you early on, where I was like,
right.
literally first stock. I was like, oh, I know exactly your adaptations, how you're going to play now after 10 seconds.
Yeah, because like essentially showed the whole hand, right? The hand won the game, but like from there you were able to just kind of take it from there. And it just sounds like a lot
Mhm.
of mid-range proactive options. That's what it sounds like you kind of gravitate towards, where it's like, okay, if I have like this proactive mid to long range option that forces X, Y, and Z, forces X, Y, and Z interactions from my opponent, I can break the X, Y, and Z down and kind of hedge my
Mhm.
bets towards consistent good results, right? So yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very
it
interesting thought.
also ties back into like the intuitive play in the moment. Like if you know they have to play your game, adaptation becomes a lot easier, right?
Mhm.
Because you're kind of like it's just categorizing. You're doing the optimal thing. All right, let's play the RPS. You're not doing the optimal thing. All right, I'm winning out on risk reward. So yeah, I totally get it. I think one final question that I think is interesting. So a lot of the characters that you played, Dabuz, are kind of like knowledge checks, and they establish their own game partially because they have things that are like outside the norm. And I understand like your opinion on having secondaries kind of like fits that character style as well. What do you think about characters like Cloud or Aegis that are a little bit more straightforward, that can play every matchup because they have all the tools? Do you think like the having a secondary for a strong character like that is different, or does it kind of like follow the same paradigm as what you outlined? Because I feel like when I look at Spargo, I'm like, yeah, Cloud is like a really good character, but definitely has losing matchups, right? Like I see Tweak
Mhm.
getting that 4-2 frame with Diddy. I'm like, all right, that doesn't sound like fun. Or the Donkey Kong or Bowser, like all these characters that have like ways to gimp him. But it looks like because the character's so simple, he can make it happen on like a player to player level. Even if the matchup itself is not that good, like he can just like make the read happen because it's so straightforward. It's less about like what the characters do and more about just like knowing what they do and just like hitting them really hard for it.
Hmm. Yeah, when you're playing straightforward characters like that, a lot of it just comes down to like a lot of it comes down to just raw execution. A lot of times more than knowledge, right? Like execution on if you're playing Cloud, a lot of the characters can you space your aerials really well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not just I know the max range of my back air. It's okay. Where should I place a back air in response to where my opponent's going to be? Do I want to drift in or do I want to drift out? Do I want to dash forward and then jump back versus do I want to jump in from farther away for this range? And then it's can I actually do it? Do I have the timing to position myself perfectly? Do I have the reactions to punish this, right? Because those characters with these simpler kits with just more strong buttons, um, you're playing an execution and just raw like player to player read type of game, right? Because a lot of those characters tend to have more balanced risk reward on a lot of options, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
have an option that controls half the screen, but they just have like 3 or 4 options that all lead to like about the same amount of damage. And they're like varying levels of safety but they're all kind of relatively safe. Like, if Cloud does like back air versus forward air versus like side B, it's all kind of the same reward, kind of like
Same range.
yeah.
Different timings,
Yeah.
though. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not very RPS. It's just like those player to player interactions at that point. And I think with those types of characters, what you get as a result is you just naturally get more inconsistency. Like Spargo's very good, but even then, he has losses to players that even though he's like second best or first best in the world, depending on your opinion, like you'd be like, he's losing to, Void, who's great, but not the same level, or he lost to Yaro, who's great, but not the same level.
yeah.
And that's just kind of the result of playing these straightforward characters is you have straightforward answers, and sometimes there isn't as much nuance to evolve those interactions.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just a matter of my opponent picked the right option, and that's it. There isn't much to do except play it out again, and hopefully not get read the same way, or space your area a little bit better. Um,
Fair
and I
enough.
think, and I think the thing is when you play those types of characters, I think having a more niche secondary helps a lot. Like I think Cloud Aegis works very well because they're very strong characters with very good matchups, and like Aegis particularly covers Cloud's bad matchups very well, and vice versa. But I think the bigger thing is people who tend to play those types of characters just don't have like the kind of mind where they're looking for like these more like intricate setups. So it's not gonna be beneficial for them because they're not gonna have as much fun trying to figure out like how to throw a projectile to cover something and then do something else. And inversely, for someone like me who likes those kind of things, just playing more with like strong buttons and it like more even execution based interactions is not as interesting as breaking down how do I kind of like develop the game in a way where I can control everything.
Do you think the solution of executing better or kind of like just reading the opponent better, do you think that is not a solid solution and that's why you recommend a secondary? Or do you think it's just like it's just good to have more range? As in like
Um,
more range of options.
I think just having more range of options is really useful. I think if you just stuck with one character, it also helps you grow a lot as a player. Is a big deal.
True.
Because if you only play one character, if you're really good with one character, but you only play one character, what happens if you get so used to one place on one character they don't like know how Smash functions as a full game? Or what if someone figures out how to play the matchup very well? What if someone maybe you play Palutena, right? And then someone plays against Palutena all the freaking time. You're not gonna beat that person probably ever, really. And like it's like bashing head against a wall because they play some random character you don't fight much, and you're playing the most common character in the game. So even just having 2 characters that are common, you reduce that risk by a lot, honestly.
For sure. Yeah.
And there's so much you can learn from other characters. Like the amount of things I've learned, like by playing all these random characters. I play random characters like Pit and Palutena a lot as well, and I've applied a lot of their knowledge to my gameplay with other characters too.
Any
So just so much there's so much you can do with characters in this game. There's so many playstyles, and a lot of people tunnel vision on like 1 or 2 instead of seeing the full suite of options. That's why watching people that are worse than you with a character helps so much a lot of times if you know what to look out for.
Absolutely. Tony, you got any closing questions before we close it out here?
So, if every player has their ace, what would you say that you look for in players who use your characters?
I don't have a specific thing, but a lot of times I go into watching someone play my character with a question of something I'm not sure about. Or if I don't have that, I go in and I ask myself when they do something, would I have done that option? If so, if not, why is that? I basically try to find places a lot of times where I disagree with someone's decision. And that disagreement is what's going to lead me to finding things out. Sometimes it's just like, oh, this person's wrong. Sometimes it's like, huh,
Oh, he's
they're
on to
doing a
something.
lot and it's kind of working, but I don't know why. But that's the main thing. That's why I really like, for example, with Olimar, we have the three Olimars. We have Shuton, Myron, and me. And we're all so different. And it's freaking awesome, right? Because I can sit down and say, bro, I don't get why Shuton wins. He's doing such weird options and it works. What the fuck's going on? Dude, Myron just runs at people. And I think it's stupid. But then he's destroying this person. I'm like, why is this thing that's stupid working? And it's awesome compared to if I watch an American Rose and it's like, yeah, the American Rose is doing what I do. Okay. Yeah, I get why it's working. Okay, I'm bored now. I'm leaving.
Yeah, so you just want difference in decision making, right? Because yeah, Myron's Olimar, if the viewers have never seen Myron's Olimar, is very, very
Very
aggressive.
different.
Yes, like we'll literally like up B into the air and like
Rabbit dog.
to go for another up air and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
you know, obviously there's certain matchups where that's good, but there's certain matchups where that can be bad too, right? So I think that is a very good way to look at different players, and I think that can apply to all skill levels. Obviously, it's a little harder when you're the best of a specific character because then you got to do a little bit more digging, right? And if you're not the best of a character, you can probably watch the best of a character, and that's very easy to do. But even for someone like the Buzz, who has been the best with a lot of different characters throughout many different games, kind of going in with that mentality seems like it's very effective. Did you have any other questions, Tony?
So, my final question would be, so now that you are starting to transition more into Street Fighter, how are you going to change your relationship with Smash?
Um, hmm. So something I find interesting is when I'm learning another fighting game, like Guilty Gear when that came out, Smash right now, is sometimes it is actually really easy to keep on my skill or even improve in Smash without playing it much. Just because by learning another game, I'm naturally encountering all these different options and it creates like a different brain state almost, where I'm very much in like a learning state and adjustment state. Where if I just kind of sit down and play Smash nonstop, I'm gonna definitely kind of stagnate just because it's an old game. Things figured out, and it's very easy to say, I know this thing. There's no improvement here. So I think in that regard, playing Street Fighter might be helpful anyway. But I will probably be putting a lot less practice time into Smash because I really do want to get good at Street Fighter, like really badly.
And the
Like
online's
I'm still
so
gonna go.
good, so it makes it very
Yeah,
possible too, right?
I can go right now if I want to turn on Street Fighter and get a match within 3 minutes of turning it on. If I want to play Smash for someone good, so not like at least Smash Timmy, I gotta go into a Discord, tag people, wait for a response, hope it's someone close enough to me that the connection is gonna be good and their skill level is good enough that it's actually a competitive match. And that might take half an hour or more. I might not even get that. That's like a huge issue right now. I feel like for practice in general, is sometimes it's really hard to just get practice in Smash. Or Street Fighter, it's not. My plan is probably just going to events that have both Smash and Street Fighter, so I can still practice Smash at the tournaments and like get that constant tournament experience, so I'm not like falling off. But also, kind of push the Street Fighter grind at least for a few months and see where that goes.
Actually, I'd like to make an addendum to that. So, especially because you just won CEO while essentially practicing this philosophy, I know that it's very common sentiment on like Smash Twitter and such that it's better to avoid FGC style Smash tournaments where there's just lots of crossplay. As someone who's attended multiples of these, what are your thoughts on that subject?
Well, I love FGC style Smash tournaments. Like those are my favorite events. Is tournaments at FGC and Smash, just straight up there. I love the vibes there. It's always fun, and I don't know, just being able to mix up games is a great time. Um, I don't really see any like issues with it either. Like, you're not losing anything going to an FGC Smash tournament. Maybe there's less Smash steps, you can't practice as much because it's not Smash focused. But I don't know.
I think
I
it's
love
just
CEO. I love
a
counter CEOs. I always look forward to
system
CEO
we
every
usually
single year.
see.
What'd you say?
Well, I'm obviously biased and going to CEO every single year as well, but I think that's a little bit of a different relationship. I said I think that the most common criticism is that it's less Smash focused because there's other games at the venue. Do you feel that this detracts from your experience?
Um, Having more options. I'm trying to think of like what that question means because I feel like it just kind of makes the experience better. Like having more options, like variety, it's super nice. If I'm tired of like watching and playing Smash, to be able to go and watch or play some Street Fighter or Guilty Gear, like just like kind of like a nice refresher in my mind. Because as mentioned before, it's super easy to stagnate when you just play one thing over and over. So like when I practice, for example, I don't practice in long 8-hour sessions. I practice in like 2-hour sessions, take a break, do something else, 2-hour session, take a break, do something else, like 1-hour session. And I think an FGC Smash event naturally lets you do that. I actually hate when I go to a Smash event and I feel like my entire weekend is just Smash. I get super burnt out and it's super noticeable in my play and my attitude.
Cleansing the palate, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, the Buzz, I'm gonna need you to do me a favor real quick. Grab that CEO belt. I want to see that on the screen, bro. You won first place. We're gonna close it out with the belt on the screen with the motivational shirt, bro. Keep it up. Let's go. Look at this. Keep it
That
up,
is
and you can get a
upside down.
nice fatty belt like this. The
That's
CEO
sick, dude.
champ.
That's beautiful.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for Coach's Corner. Congratulations, The Buzz, to your first place on CEO. It's going to be it for us. And until next time, class dismissed.